All right, so part two of the killer Zuma Tao Tao Franken scooter. All right, so my first task was to try to figure out what I'm going to need for controls, and I'm trying to access the handlebar mount. And let's see if I can bring it up here. It's this is what I'm looking at. Now, see, that's off of 2013, and I'm pretty sure that bolt and mounting system right down there is the same, but it allowed me to mount a 7/8 inch handlebar. So as you can see, this is looking like the same deal here. So I think what it is that they may have retained the same frame or steering head, but that they just restyled the bars. So I'm going with that, and I'm going through what I've got for switches. This one's cut off so short that, I'll see what happens. They work good. Everything works good there. And then I am working on an Arichi. I think that's what they call it, an Arichi carburetor. Arichi. It's a 19 millimeter. And so what I've really got to do is get in there, and I've got to clean all this. So I might even just take the whole wheel and tire setup. I've got to take it off anyway to paint the frame. So I'm going to do that. The engine spins, and the bottom ends are protected enough that usually they're okay. I've got a 70cc kit. So I'm working on a parts bike right now. I'd like to find something that is complete but not running. And then I could probably use the wiring harness. Any switches that I just don't want to take the time to rewire. And, many other things like the variator, the centrifugal clutch, all those parts are good, and I've got a lot of that stuff. But just for instance, that starter wire, all that, just the time it takes to wire all that up. So what I've also done is I have got the gas tank, and I have it out here, and I don't know if you can see in there, but she's rusty. She is rusty. And I really want to get a light and show you. So look in there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but man, is it rusty. It's rusty in there. And so I'm going to do the vinegar, and I'll show you what it's like after the vinegar. One other thing I'm going to show you is the oil tank. One thing I've always had a problem with Zumas on is that it's really difficult. You can see now how much oil's in there. And I find that tank is like 5 times too big. And it should be much easier to read, because I don't know how many times we've had questions about, hey, is it using oil? Is the injection system working right? Am I getting oil in there, And I've worried about that, because you can't really go off this huge tank. It burns such a little bit of it that how do you tell? And sometimes I've taken off the little tube and just ran it, and I've watched it like drip, a little drip, baby drip. And that's always, just been a question for me. Is it actually pumping enough oil or oil? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a tank that is, I think, right sized. I think the tank should run 3 tankfuls of gas, and then you need oil in your tank. And it should be a real light plastic, so you can physically see how much oil you've got in there. So probably mount it somewhere in here. Motion Pro makes a reserve tank, a little remote reserve coolant tank, which I think might just be really cool. I think it's the right size, and I've used it. In fact, I think I have it on a motorcycle here. I think I do. This is a custom that I built out of a V30 Magnum. I customized the back tail section. This is a Cafe Racer, and this is the Motion Pro tank. So something like this, that's easily seen. You can easily see how much oil's in there. And I would have to fit the bottom with some sort of a pickup. It looks like there might even be an area right there I could put a hose on, and then put a hole in the bottom. So something like that I think would look cool, but it would also give me that real visible look as to how much oil's left, and save some weight and bulk. So these are just some of the things that I'm going through right now. And so it's onto the tank and the vinegar. As you can see now, I've got the flashlight. You can see in there. Pretty clean. Pretty clean. So that's all I can hope for. And then to get it to where it's at now, I don't know if we can see in there any better. There's still water in there. So I'm going to get the water out and continue to dry it. Kind of a force dry here. And then we'll put some two-stroke. I'm going to put some two-stroke oil with a little gasoline. Not much, just enough to coat it. And that'll keep the surface rust from developing till we can actually get the bike built and filled with gas. Some parts came in, but not enough. The Kickstarter, that was broken off. And then there's the actual lever. And it's just a little foam for the air cleaner, little grommets for the air cleaner, some screws, miscellaneous stuff. So what they did, and also a new starter clutch, brand new, reproduction out of Taiwan, I think. So what they did is they sent the partial shipment, and if you are ordering from Partzilla, which has OEM Yamaha scooter parts, which is a really good place to go, they will hold everything until the whole order's in. So half the parts I ordered are, I call them back ordered, but they just don't stock them there. They basically have to get them from Yamaha. So I'd say there's only 1 out of like 30 items that is actually back ordered. So it was going to hold everything up. So I called them and I told them, go ahead and ship what you have. And they did that. And then they're going to wait till all the other stuff comes in. So the parts manager had a small memo that went out, and he's not happy. So the memo is laying in the front yard on the grass, and we're all supposed to take a look at it. Anyhow, so one thing that did come in is the handlebar bracket. Now I got this off of YouTube. I got this off eBay, and it's identical, and it actually fit right on there, but I'm gonna have to shave. There's a little section of the stem that has a area beveled out so the bolt can go through. As you can see here, the bolt won't go through. So I'm gonna have to take my moto tool or a grinder and grind that out to allow the bolt so it centers the center of the wheel and the handlebars. That's where it's supposed to be, just like that. And then also one of the parts that's on back order is this other clamp. So when I bought this on eBay, it came with this, the bracket, but it's missing one of these. So I got that coming, and then that'll complete the bars. And so these are like I don't know what you'd call them, superbike bars or whatever, and we're going to cut those down. We'll probably cut them down that far so that they more resemble the scooter width. And I do have a set of Renthal bars, which I think would be cool on there also. I think the Renthal bars are going to go on there. But I might get a colored Renthal bar. And so the other thing I did was I ordered the paint. This is what she wants. She wants magenta, which I think is going to look, it's going to be in your face, the color. So I started looking at Summit, and then I just started searching around trying to find auto air colors directly, to get a data sheet and that sort of thing. So I ended up at TCP, and so I went to paint and coatings, and basically I came up with a magenta. I just searched magenta up here in this taskbar. I just searched magenta, but it brought me to a place called Custom Shop, which is their own brand. And this is a nice site. I ordered quite a few little things when I ordered it. So we're going to go here to paint colors, and then we're going to go to pearl base coat, because I've got clear all clear I need. And there it is, magenta. So that's the color that's going to go on the frame, and most likely the fuel tank. And of course the fork, triple clamp and things like that. Anything that's like frame related. So if you can imagine magenta on this, magenta, and I'm probably going to do a diamond plate little pad here, foot pad. But magenta is going to just stand out with a brand new seat cover. So that's why the bar colors are going to be kind of important. So I don't know whether I do a contrasting or try and find a pink bar, or so that's still something left to decide on. Got a little bit of a base going, and this thing's dirty. I'm gonna have to clean it up. Now I don't know, it's probably going to be a little faded, but it sure fits in there nice. And I trimmed this up, and it's kind of like a rubber floor mat, but it also gives me that battery compartment and location there, which I really gonna need. So that's that's a start. That's a start on that. And I got the wheel off and was able to take that starter out. Now, there was an ugly wire sitting on it and really no pigtail. So I found this pigtail in my parts. So I cleaned the starter all up, got it lubricated, did a little heat shrink, tidied it all up, and I've got to clean those 2 bolts or I'm not going to like it. So that'll go back up in there. And then I've got a piece here that I'm going to make fit. And it's going to give me a cover, kind of a, I don't know, just a little bit of a cover, but what it does is it allows me to reinstall the plate here, and that's important. Even though I'm going to have an exposed VIN number here, that's nice to have that, just for quick reference, side of the road sort of thing. Yes, officer. Yes, officer. Here, it's not stolen. Check it out. And I'm going to probably just rivet it right here. 2 pop rivets, and it's on. So by doing that, I'm probably going to want to paint that tank the magenta color that the frame will be, because I'm covering up quite a bit of it here, but I'll have a magenta kickstand sticking out and all that, all magenta, all the way up into here. And then these are the bars, and I shortened, took an inch off either side, and they're about as wide as the stock ones, but they, I think, look a lot better, because this is going to be a, kind of a naked scooter, other than just the stand, footrest here, that little piece of plastic. That's probably all I'm going to do. And in somewhere, I'm going to have to mount a cup holder, the 2 headlights, turn signals in the front, and turn signals in the rear. But I'm still waiting for parts, so I'm just trying to figure out the wiring harness at this point. And this is all wiring harness from the existing Zuma, and this is the wiring harness from the Tao Tao, and I'm gonna give it a shot just to see if I can utilize this, because it's in fairly good shape. And there again, I'd be waiting. They're not too expensive to buy a complete wiring harness off of eBay, but I'd be waiting. So just gonna have to see. I've got a key, an ignition, everything I need here. But what is the difference between a 2-stroke and a 4-stroke? And I don't think there's a whole lot. I've got my wiring here, and here's my CDI from the Zuma, and that's all wired. So I've got to figure a rectifier, and I think the rectifier is the same, or would work between the Zuma and the Tao Tao, but that's not a big deal if I have to buy one. I just need to know the wiring, so I'm working on that. And we continue to move along. We've got the plastic around the engine. That's basically the blower blowing air across the engine. I thought about leaving it open, but if you're standing at a stoplight, well, it's probably better off having this. I'm sure it is. You're blowing air, and perhaps I would assume it's probably blowing more air across that engine, especially when it's revving up to about 6, 7, 8,000 RPM. That's got to be blowing a tremendous amount of air. So it'll stay on there. It's going to be so accessible. I could pull it off and see how it goes. Maybe put a little makeshift thermometer, little pickup on the cooling fins and a gauge of some sort, and just play around with it. But that's way down the road. So wiring harness and trying to just get the frame sorted out so I know all the mounting points, everything welded on, so I can start to prep it for paint. The wiring begins. Wiring up a fuse in the power to the starter. We've got the starter all wired in there, and the ground. Listening to a little Pink Floyd, Us and Them. But anyway, look at this. Look at this mess. But I'll show you what I've got going on here. It's like a patient laid on the table with all their guts laid out, and you're trying to figure out how they go back into their belly. So we've got the key. Let's turn it on. And what do we got? We have a tail light. Now, we have a brake light switch, which we really need on scooters because the starter won't work without the brake light switch. And I could bypass both of those, but why? It works good. With the brake on, okay, we get a brake light, but we also get a starter. So I've got that figured out. Here is the Chinese turn signal, and I'm labeling everything. I'm labeling everything that I can. We can hit the turn signals. Let's see if we can hit them again. There we go. Now this was a basket case that I pulled this wiring harness off. And then we go to the other side. So I've got the blinkers, I've got the starter, I've got the brake, I have the run switch is working. I've got the ignition key, both of the brake light switches. Now I've got these headlights. These are goofy, and I think they're just blown out. Excuse me. And since I don't need any speedometer, none of this will get hooked up. Actually, I'm going to probably just eliminate a lot of this wiring once I get what I want working. So the big question is, I've got the Zuma CDI, CDI ignition. So these wires, basically I've got what is it here? Go 2, 3, 4, 5 wires coming out of that, okay? And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coming out of this one. So I've got to get this into this spot with the correct wiring coming out of the Zuma motor. And so just tracing the wires and taking my time, it'll probably take me a few hours to get it all figured out, what goes where and where the wires, where the colors change. And an electrician told me a long time ago, voltage doesn't know what color it is. So I've just got to make sure on the wiring diagram from the Zuma, and I'm pretty sure that the black is a ground. These two are two hots, or there's one hot. Basically, it's where the power is being generated. It's coming out and into the wiring harness, and then it, essentially back to the battery. And then there's these two wires, and one of these goes up through this switch and then into, I can't remember. Anyway, so you see what I'm up against. I've got to have both wiring harnesses, and then I have to have both wiring schematics if I can. If not, I'll just have to trace what they're doing here with the Tao Tao, and then hope that I know what they're doing with the Zuma, and connect those all up. And the last thing is the rectifier. And where did it's right here. So I've got to make sure that this rectifier, the rectifier might work. This is the Tao Tao. It might work, but the wiring might be set up differently. So I'm going to have to, there again, that's where I really need a schematic for the Tao Tao and for the Zuma, because I could probably just use this. And if not, I've got the 4 wires, and I could use the Zuma if that's the case. But that's the goal with this huge mess. What I did was cut a hole to run this, basically all the wiring. Take that wiring down the tube and have it come out under there. So that'll hide. I thought it'd be kind of ugly to have the wiring following this tube exposed. So nice little channel there. I feel I got enough strength in this bracket. I think this bracket, once it's welded up, will be plenty. And I'm also going to have, more strength up there too. So I love it. And now what I'm building is the headlight bracket, which is going to house the blinkers and the headlights. And I've got a little surprise for the racer girl. #1 plate on a scooter. It's going to look awesome. Going to come screaming down the road with this little scooter. It's going to look like it's going 100 miles an hour. And it looks like it's full throttle all the way. So, got to get that all welded up. And the rear rack is mounted. Kind of finishes off the back. And the plate and the head or tail light will be back on that plate underneath. And I've got the headlight bracket on and the blinker. The blinkers will mount there and the headlights will mount there. So we're getting there. This looks like a really good time to end the final part of this segment. So what I've got is, got pretty much the wiring harness figured out. I've got it all pulled apart, and some parts came in, the mirrors, front fender, and I've got the parts separated out here for painting. And so she wants white legs. Of course, all the black will be that magenta. And then she wants white wheels and a white shock absorber. And of course the frame, it's out here. And so what I've done with the frame is mounted the rear rack, and basically I just ground everything down, all the welds, anywhere I could, just to get it smoothed out. And I don't know how much I'm going to really do to this. It's not going to really come out with body work, I don't think. But I'm going to see. I'm going to at least do a little filling. This isn't going to get seen because it's underneath the floor pan, and then of course the fuel tank and engine is in there. But I got all the tabs off. Got all the tabs off here. Tabs here. There were tabs everywhere. But now it's pretty streamlined. And I'm going to keep these bars, even though they stick out a little bit. Might be added protection. So I've got my headlight bracket, turn signal bracket on the edge, and I've got my hole that'll feed all the wiring down. Of course, the kickstand, and the seat's out getting upholstered. So I'm thinking this is a good spot for an end of this segment. And the people in Shingletown have disowned me. I haven't heard a thing from them. So I figure what that is I need to get something back out, something that they can play with, something on the video, something on YouTube that they can sit around and, you know, with their chewing tobacco and their spittoons and so forth. Maybe play a little beer pong, I don't know, whatever they do out there in Shingletown. So I'll get this out as soon as I can, and I know I'm going to hear from Joe if I don't. So this will go out to all those people in Shingletown, and everyone else that's watching will be getting right into paint on the next segment.